Hi, it's Simon. Welcome back to Better Creating. In this video, I'll give you an in-depth tour of my complete life operating system that I've built completely in Notion. I'm genuinely so excited by this and how far Notion has come over the years as an all-in-one productivity tool to do this with. It has enabled me to create a powerful and easy to use second brain system that tracks my tasks, projects, habits, goals, notes, knowledge, and all the rest all in one place. It is the ultimate Notion second brain that genuinely I use every day to organize my entire life. So after 3 years of tweaking, learning, simplifying, I think this template is finally the second brain system I've dreamed of building. It's designed around David Allen's seminal productivity workflow from getting things done, Tiago Forte's power method outlined in his book, Building a Second Brain. We'll talk more about those later. And it even has an automated daily tracker inspired by James Clear's Atomic Habits and a little bit of Stoic journaling. So here's what you can expect in this longer video. First, I will give you the headlines of what I've included, and for you thousands of existing users out there, what's new in this massively improved version of my Notion LifeOS template. Then I'll give you a step-by-step deep dive tour through the main areas of the template from the perspective of A, how a new user would get set up on the system, and B, from the perspective of daily actions we would want to take to organize our lives using this system day to day. This video is both an onboarding guide and a complete tour, so if you want to just build your own version of it, you can, using the video as inspiration. Finally, I'll share some info on our growing LifeOS community, the new Discord server that I'm launching to support it and the template, and information for all of you existing LifeOS template users of how to move across and access the template. And of course, chapter markers are in the timeline so you can jump between sections as you need to. Before we dive in, I have of course turned the whole system into a downloadable Notion template. So if you would like a full ready to use system created for you so you can just jump in straight away and start using and adapting it for your needs, then jump over to bettercreating.com/LifeOS. I've included a quick start onboarding guide and section by section guides integrated into the template. And as part of the launch, you can get 50% off the list price with my launch offer code LifeOS Launch. For the thousands of existing users who already have version 2 of what was called the Productive Notion and the Complete Notion LifeOS templates, I'm making the basic version of it available to you via a special link. You can get it for free if you need, but it is a pay what you can link. So if you can, please consider supporting my work on this brand new template this year. You'll receive an email of how to access it, and instructions are all linked in the video description below. Let's jump into the tour. First up, navigation and dashboards. This is the main homepage. It fits on a page, which I'm really pleased with because I'm using toggles to give simple views and reduce everything down. Now, what I'm really proud of is you can open a view, for example, highlighted projects in the desktop version, or if you're on a mobile or you just want to see a clean view, you click on the link and it takes you to an exact version of that on the page. Pretty cool. This is the main global menu that sits right across everything, and if you click it, it takes you home. But within it, we also have all of the key dashboards to this system. They're divided into 4 sections, and I think those are the key areas any second brain should cover to keep you organized and stress-free. So to action things like creative projects, client relationships, tasks and projects, all of that kind of stuff. Track things like your daily tracker, a journal and fitness tracker. You might want to visualize things, set goals and plan the year. This is probably the first place to start in a template like this if you're new. I've got year reports which literally show almost everything in the template for the year in a summarized form. Really cool. There's a decision maker. That's going to be an add-on that I will add in the future. I've got a kind of shopping list. And then Organise, where we really keep all of our information. So notes, clippings, journal entries, everything. This is probably one of the biggest things that's been requested, and this was a lot of work and it's really good, I think. This is the Para dashboard. It's using Tiago Forte's kind of top level system for organizing information. We'll come back to that a bit later on. Finally, in my main home screen, you'll see I have this, a quick actions view using Notion's new buttons. And this, the guide, is actually listed in the main menu throughout, along with things like the Discord server. So if you ever want help within my template, you just click on the button and you'll find quick start and onboarding, user guides for every section of the template, and even somewhere you can leave me a testimonial. So I have built 2 versions of this system essentially. So there is the Notion Life OS, a complete second brain, and then I have a Notion Life OS and Creative OS bundle. So the tour is going to show you the entire bundle, but we'll focus mostly on the Life OS, and I'll point out any Creative OS specific additions. What I really love about this is it essentially creates an entire content project manager and then beefs up the contacts management system into a full CRM, and the finance tracker becomes a finance manager for those creative projects. So let's dive in. We want to be able to capture things with as little friction as possible. The reason us productivity people say capture is that you want to be able to put things into a system and not have to hold them. Therefore, they are captured for later. So the reason that this set of buttons is at the top of my template is that on mobile, when you open it up, you could link this to a widget, for example, in your mobile view and jump straight to it and be able to capture whatever you want. So that's things like putting in new tasks as they come to mind, quickly journaling, maybe it's a new note, a new tweet that you have an idea for to put into the content manager if you are using the bundle Creative OS version of this. So this is how it works. I might select a new task, I'll see it pop up, I can select the template, and let's say that we want to feed Pepper. That's it, done. When it comes to processing them, you would open your inbox and you would find it there. And now essentially an inbox, in my view, is a kind of default location that everything you put into the system goes to first, and then it just hasn't been organized into the system. Now, there's different things you might do. For example, I want to do a quick new note. So I might put this in, call it a quick note, name it Ideas on Productivity Today. Yeah, and again, leave it. So then within this, I can see these quickly captured notes are in those inboxes. The same with things like ideas for possible bits of content. It might be new journal entries, new clippings from the web, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, to process things from an inbox, you just need to organize them into the system, and each one has different filters that help you do that. So if I open up the filters on my tasks, it's essentially saying anything that doesn't have a project linked to it, this is because of subtasks as well, should be here, and anything where the status isn't complete should be in the inbox. So essentially I would, for example with Pepper, set the date. I actually want to do it tomorrow, and I'm going to set the daily priority as a quick task, assign it to myself, and it's ready to go because it's not been blocked. I can then add it to a project. Let's just say maintain and review. I don't know why it would be that, but there you go. I add it to a project, and that is what filters it out of the system. So if I look down under this week's tasks, there it is, feed Pepper, or in my to-do list view, feed Pepper. And when it's completed, you tick it off and it disappears. More on task management later on. Let's briefly though talk about the idea of capturing clippings. So if I go to my Knowledge Hub, I've got options to use buttons like this here to add new knowledge. Now, one of the great things about Notion is it works with other external plugins. There is Notion's Web Clipper, but also Save to Notion is my favorite Chrome or Microsoft Edge extension. Put it into your browser, it's free. So let's take a look at using Save to Notion. So one option would be to just add a new clipping into here and fill it in manually, but that's kind of less useful whilst it's there. What I'm going to do is jump to Google Chrome. You can also do this in Microsoft Edge and install the Save to Notion extension. Here are some forms that I created earlier. I'm going to add a new form and I'm going to find my knowledge database and select it. You can then either bookmark a reference to the information or actually extract content. There's a couple of options in there. I'm going to do a full extraction. You can then add fields from all of the things within the knowledge base. I'm going to do that nice and quickly now. So I've set up the form so that it's pre-populated as articles in category and a new clipping in knowledge status. I could also select that it's on the reading list if it's something that I want to read, but I'm going to leave it as an inbox filter for now. And then you can just fill things in. Once you're happy with the pre-population of it, I've even used my new clipping template, which is really good. I can save and go back and I have the option. So now to clip this, I simply click on the knowledge base. It takes all the information in. I can fill it in, select an area. We're going to call Pepper my friend. I can even relate it to projects in my life if I want to. So I'm going to click the page and it's now in Notion. The other thing you can do here is actually highlight things, right click, and that will actually drop the highlight into the same entry. So if we go back in, there's our clipping, categorized in the right place. If I open it up, we'll also see all of the details that we've added into the system, and any highlights will turn up at the top. Really, really powerful stuff. Now, of course, the way I would take this out of the inbox is just either add it to my reading list, set it as something I'm consuming, or my bibliography of information is a place where knowledge is just kept in the system so I can refer to it, or if I archive it, it disappears it off the system and you'll just find it in the archive section of Para. I'm going to just set this one on my reading list, and you'll see within the reading list it's turned up. Now, the other powerful thing is Readwise, which essentially collates all of your Kindle highlights, tweet posts that you've captured, clippings, articles from the web into one place. You can then feed that through an extension into Notion, and I've set up my knowledge database so it's perfectly aligned with what Readwise requires, so you can essentially align it and have automatic clippings coming through your Readwise integration directly into your workspace and join it to all of your projects. Really cool. Now, in terms of a year, the first thing anyone should do when using a second brain is set their goals and plan their year. And that is the first place I suggest people start with this template if they're new to it. So in my goals and planner dashboard, you'll see I have a live goals view and a year reports view. Now, the year reports is basically all the years that you've used the template for. It shows you a report of everything that's happened, from the goals, how much you've achieved of them, what you've planned for habits, and the progress you've made with habits up here. So those things link. But if we go back to the goals and planner, you'll see this section called Plan Your Year. Now, I have a full video on how to do this from a year or so ago. I'll link it in the description below because it's exactly the same process. So I'll focus mostly on how you would action these ideas into the system. But as a quick overview for anyone who hasn't seen that video, I would look back at my calendar, create this a link to my Google Calendar or whatever it is, and maybe any journal entries in the system, and reflect on what's happened. I would then list for the year that we're in different wins and losses and the lessons I've learned from them. You know, you just create a new one, give it a category. Let's say projects and actions, built a life OS. For example, I've reflected on the previous year. Once that's done, I can then start a new year plan using the button and visualize and set goals. Now, I like to do this in a kind of more notebook form. So I would put in 2023, open it up, and you can just list down your vision, your goals, your milestones you might want to hit in order to reach those goals in a really simple way. And then from there, you can take that information and process it into the actual second brain. So there are sections designed to do this. They're just views of the different databases from goals and milestones, projects, habits, fitness tracker. Really simply, you create a new goal. You set what goal it is. This is my third goal, and it's for the year I've created in the years database. And we'll call this one, for example. We can go back, and then you can create new sub-items that are the milestones. And for example, I might just turn it into a milestone using that button. You might want to set a target date here, and then I can set the target date for this milestone. And then if I actually go to the milestones, I can even see where they are. I can stretch out how long things happen and see the dependencies. There's a good example down here. There are all the dependent milestones to that goal. Really cool. Here you'll see where you can add new projects and link them to the goals. So for example, I might want to create new projects and then say, oh yeah, that one wants to go to building that brain. The other thing about goals is you might want to add an area that it's linked within. For example, personal development, more of that in a little bit. You can set your habits in the habit planner, and you can set up exercises using templates again for your fitness tracker. So that is setting up your year, setting up your projects so that you'll then be able to view those items throughout the system. So for example, if I go to my project dashboard and open up all of my projects, I can see there's my project dashboard. I can jump into it and see that that goal has been linked to it. And this is the power of this system. Everything links back together. So we've captured things, we've set up our year. The usual thing you're going to be doing in terms of actioning with this is planning your day, running your day, tracking your progress through a day. So let's look at all the ways this can help me do that. There are a couple of places I would run my daily tasks and to-do items from. One is just on this main homepage where I can drop down and look at to-do lists for today, check things off, and it disappears them from the system. Anything that's delegated can go into there, and I can look at my weekly view here and even move things around, which is really cool about these new weekly calendars. There's a timeline view where I can see what's dependent on other things, and I can also see a week view in this section, in my action section, with projects I've highlighted, deadlines below that for anything that is due, my calendar below that. I can link to my Google Calendar, and I'm using an Indify widget, which I show you how to set up in here, and then a task monthly view. Now, the cool thing about this is you can set up recurring tasks which repeat at certain times in the week. But if you didn't want to do that, you can use my old school method here, which is to create items in the database, drop them into here, and then generate them. And then it means you can pre-populate a calendar with tasks where you want them to be. The advantage of that is that you can pre-populate repeating actions. So that's very much just there as an option. Not everyone would want it. More on task management a little bit later on, but there's also then this today view. If you click through, a dashboard for everything that's happening today. So it's everything filtered by today. I thought this was a really nice new addition for me to have personally, because I can look at my projects, the bundle. You can look at your creative projects as well as your standard projects. I can look at that same calendar, notes, creative projects that are live in the Creative OS, if you have that in the system, journal items, all of that. One thing I'm really excited about is being able to generate parent and subtasks, and we'll look at that in a bit. So that might be how I would manage my week. I can look at tasks that I've set from my inbox, work through them, check them off, and be sure I'm on top of everything. Next, let's look at logging habits. Here's a great example. Today, I've been medium productive. Nice. And I'm going to log habit 1. So that's the power of the buttons. And what's really cool is if we jump to the tracker, this is possibly my favorite thing in the entire template. A brand new habit tracker, which really is powerful with these buttons. We can click them from here. So when you're on mobile, that'll be the first thing you see. You can just set it up on a widget and jump straight to it. I can log workouts from the fitness tracker by setting them, and it will automatically link them to today. Here's the fitness tracker where you would run this. I'm actually working on this at the moment, but you'll see logged workouts for the past week. And if I forgot any, I can drop them in, and link them to the days. It will show me when I last did workouts. It will show me how many workouts I've done in a certain area. And these are all the exercises that you can set up. I won't go into loads of detail about this because there are guides in here and you'll be able to understand it. If we jump back to the tracker, what I'm really excited to show you is how to set up new habits and how they work, because the way the habit tracker works is that the daily tracker database has a recurring today item. Every single day, you would set this to be your time zone at 12 midnight and it will create a new item. Now, the reason that's so powerful is that if you don't log something, it still creates a day entry, and that means that you can go back and see what you have or haven't done by checking things off. Really powerful. And since that new day is linked to a year, you will also be able to look at year reports of the habits alongside what you've intended to hit, because this is my weekly targets and my yearly report. So let's set up a habit in the plan habits section. Here are all the habits I've created so far. I'm going to create a new one by adding a new habit. I want to set the year as the current year. I want to set the related goal. I want to do it 3 times every week. It's telling me I need to do 156 over the year and a target of 43%. I can then set up the habit following the setup guide. It's pretty simple, really. You're going to select the year that it's on and you want to go into properties and just show the habit that you're creating. I'm going to call this habit 2, running as an example. On this one, I want to also set the year and show the property that we are tracking, habit 2, show that in the view. And now you should find that habit 2 is there. So there is habit 2. I've done 156. I'm going to log it. It checks it off, and you'll be able to see the results within the year. Now, next up is the journal, and this is probably my favorite trick in the template from these new buttons. Let me show you this. I'm going to add a new journal and watch this. It checks off that I journaled at the same time as creating a new reflection. So what you're seeing there is I can do my journaling. If I now click into my daily tracker log, I can see all of the journal reflections within that page. If we jump to my journaling homepage, you'll then see all of the entries you've done in the last month. You can look at an historic table view, you can link subject tags, you can link it to areas and projects, and you can see how well you're doing with journaling on a calendar view. How about that? If I create a new example, you'll see I have this list of templates, and I've created a full set of templates that help me do anything from reviewing content to Tim Ferriss's 7 questions to test the impossible, success and gratitude reflections, and so on. So for example, if I want to do a weekly reflection, it will create that template and guide you through the process. It even says, do you want to do any more later on? Really nice. So there are all of those examples of different reflections, and what's really cool is if we now go back to the tracker, you should see that my weekly reflection is linked into the list. So next up, let's look at organising your life. All the information that you hold needs to have a system to make sense of it. So if we look down here, that really covers the Power Dashboard, notebooks, knowledge, and I suppose you could also link projects into that because projects are the first thing in the Power Dashboard. So let's look at both of those. My Power Dashboard, Tiago Forte's methodology, which you can read more about in Building a Second Brain. This is his kind of overview, if you haven't heard of it, of a kind of top level view of all the information that you currently have going on in organising your life in one place. So each letter stands for a list of things, a list of projects, areas, resources, and then your archives. So projects I would look at as specific things that you are working on. That might be a product business, a YouTube channel, perhaps it's setting up some automated accounts or your bucket list. It's how I group tasks together in kind of larger areas that you're actually working on. Now, areas are more like larger parts of your life. That might be your health, your business, your hobbies, perhaps it's music or finances. These can link to anything. So an area could carry a project, it could also carry journal items and clippings, which are kind of like resources, or it could actually carry a resource area. So the next one are resources, and these are themes and things, subjects that you might have data and information on. I look at it more as a group of materials and topics. Here are some examples: business strategies and productive organisation. Both of my areas and my resources are served by the same database, and there is a good reason for that. It means that certain things can be linked to resources, but then also resources can sit within areas, and the whole system seems to work better because of it. The archive is literally every single database in the system that carries information, and it's filtered essentially as something is checked as archived or completed. So you can find all of the tasks you've ticked off in that box, for example, if you wanted to delete them later on. Now, it's worth saying that projects and resources might be contained within an area, but also you may not want to join them. You have the choice. Essentially, you can link anything in the system databases to anything else, meaning that you can make connections that then help you see things in the right place, in the right context elsewhere. So area views have views of clippings and notes, or even an entire resource, projects, notes, journal entries, contacts, and so on. A dashboard will then support your given context for whatever you're doing. This essentially means you can customize Tiago's Power system into your own approach and to your system that best works for you. Now let's move up a layer to what is probably the thing I use the most, which is the projects database. So let's jump to the projects dashboard, and you'll see here I can highlight projects that are important to me, but also this is probably the most important tool in the project system, which is the weekly review. Now this works with a filter, and it has one simple rule where review is due. Now that essentially checks if the due date for the review has passed based on how frequently you want to check it. So I want to check this one every 7 days and this one every 14 days. So what you can do is click into the weekly review, look to see, yeah, the last review was on the 1st of March and it's every 14 days, so it was due on the 15th. I can look through, check tasks, add chat tasks, or review different bits of detail in here that I might need to. And then when you're happy, you can use this rather cool new automation, mark it as reviewed, it moves the date to today, and it disappears from the due for review Let's move on to one of the most powerful things that this second brain system does, which is task management, personal productivity. This system is very much based on GTD, David Allen's Getting Things Done, a seminal productivity book, but still a brilliant system for managing your life. The idea is that when anything comes up, you capture it into the system, and then you can decide whether you do it immediately, defer it, by adding it to a project or giving it a due date or delegating it. And this is how I would go about doing it in this system. So we have these new task buttons over here, and here's my inbox. So let's just add a new task. And let's say that I also wanted to start another group. So I'm going to use the new parent and subtask set. And then I can set up the subtasks, which have already been linked to it, saying that they're blocking things. It's all very good. And now you can do this all yourself just by saying what's blocking what and add new subtasks here. But these new buttons really make the difference. Let's just name these. There we go. Now I can set dates for these if I want to, but to be honest with you, right now, I'm really happy just leaving them underneath. I am going to assign this to myself, and I'm going to set the due dates for upgrading this motorcycle to have an end date. I'm going to start on today and I'm going to end, I want to have done it by Friday. There you go. Now, let's say I've added those in. So they're in my inbox, but they're not allocated to a project. And actually, I don't have a project that I want to do this yet with. So I'm going to actually create one. I'm going to go in here and create a new project. It fills it all out, and it's automatically setting my review date. I'm going to say my last review date was today because I haven't reviewed it. I'm going to review it on the 4th, and this one's going to be all things related to moto life. I'm going to highlight it so it turns up in my highlighted project because I love it. There's nothing added to it yet, although if we added some others in here, for example, a new task, it's already linked to moto life, which is nice, and that's me again. And I would like to do this on Friday, and the deadline is Saturday. It's great. So you'll now see it has one project task in it because I've assigned it, and this one hasn't been assigned. So another way that you would add things in here is in this area. You might add them like this, create them here, and it might be that I just want to add due dates for these jobs. And once you're happy with all of that, you can also do things like drag assignees down. I will add the main task to a project, and the whole lot is assigned. Now this is really cool. You'll now see there are 5 project tasks in there because there are 5 tasks. But what you'll see is that if we click through, there they all are. And I have a system with these motorcycle things which automatically references them back to the project. So everything is assigned to the right thing. It's really powerful stuff, my friends. Now we can see things. And actually, do you know what? This one is in progress. Now, where I normally manage my tasks is in my to-do list view. So here are my tasks. I can also view them in single tasks, and I'll see all those individual tasks turn up on the date that they're due. I can see what's actionable and what's waiting. So for example, in this view, I can select that I have bought the motorcycle parts. That will disappear from the view, and my next actionable task is to fit the motorcycle parts. The other great thing about this view is that I can select what tasks are due when. So I can make this my one thing, I could make this one in the afternoon, and it will reorder items using the daily priority. So I can see all of my tasks, check them off, and as they get done, it says it's 100% done. For example, if we go back into the project, you can see that they're all completed, so I can mark that off as done, and the whole thing moves out the way and it is completed. So that is subtasks and dependencies, but we can also create recurring tasks. And the way to do that is to click on any task view, click into here, and I've got this duplicate for a new recurring task. So I'm going to duplicate it and set this one up. I'm going to want that to happen I'm going to leave the due date. I'm going to link the project to maintain and review. I think that's everything that needs to be listed in there. It's got a status which is recurring today due to using that template, and you'll see it's got a kind of different color logo on it. This means that if I go back out, click on here and click the repeat, I'm going to click it to start every week on a Friday. I want it to create it then, so it's going to be every week on a Friday, and we're set. And it is repeating along with watching my videos every Friday. That's how you do it. Set up your recurring tasks in here and they will automatically pop up. And you'll also find, interestingly, that you'll have recurring tasks that are due. So anything you've not done will drop in here. Great. It's also worth saying, if you want a more in-depth guide on how to use dependencies, timeline views, dependent tasks, subtasks. I have a full video on that. I'll link it below and you can check that out for more details. Next, let's move on to organising your information and the amazing multi-database systems I've built to store everything you might need a brain to hold for you so that you don't have to hold it. That's notes, quotes, clippings, finances, income, client information, wish list, shopping lists, creative ideas, and so on. So earlier we looked at using the Knowledge Hub and saving information, so you probably have a really good idea of how this system works now. Now what I keep separately to clippings and knowledge, quotes, are my own notes, and that happens in notebooks. So my notebook page is essentially a place where I can write anything myself. So it might be drafts of ideas, meeting notes, and it works with essentially notebooks and notes. I'm using the sub items for notes and main items are notebooks. And I think this is a really cool new way to organize notes and notebooks together. So any new note that we might want to do, we can either set up a new notebook with a first note in it, or we can add a new quick note and then add that to a notebook. We create a new note, it's a quick note, so I select that, type stuff in, there you go. It's automatically in my quick notes, but what I can do is remove it from that using the little arrows over here, and then I can add it to a different notebook if I want to, like the one I've already got, and then you'll see the note is filtered in. I can also make it in progress if I want to, that's all up for grabs. If you're starting a new project or a new set of ideas, let's say you're beginning a project and wanting to do meeting notes, I can do a new notebook with a first note. It's going to create the first draft note. It doesn't need a parent notebook, and I can link the whole thing either into a resource or an area, depending on what it's relevant to. I can add it to a project, and I can even link clippings into it. So everything can be linked back to everything else. And my first note, I can jump into it, and away we go. And there you go, you can see what is what. Pretty cool. So that's how my new notebook system works. You could, of course, create new notebooks on their own just by jumping in here and creating a new notebook. There are lots of ways to manage it. The reason something stays in the inbox is if it's in the quick notes notebook or if it just doesn't have a notebook. The moment you add it to a different one, it jumps down into your notebooks. And then this is all of your notes in various different views by project, all notes, highlighted notes, notes for the month. There are lots of ways to look at your notes. So let's now jump through to a couple of other areas that you might find exciting for storing information. The first one is the wish list. It's literally a place to put the things that you might want to purchase. I actually use Save to Notion with a wish list so that I can add items directly from a web page, as we did with knowledge. And I've simply filtered that by what's purchased and what's not. Now the final areas to store information would be your finances and your contacts. Let me show you a very quick tour of those and how they link into a more extended version of a creative OS, a place to manage your creative projects, clients, contracts in one place if you opted for the bundle and downloaded this system. This is a development of my original financial tracker. I'm really pleased with how this has come on. It will give you a report of the year. We basically have 3 databases, a balance sheet for the financial year, and then an income database and an expenditure database. As you might expect, we can use recurring templates to create recurring items now. So if I wanted to create a recurring bill or salary, you could put that in the way that you would have done with anything else and it will pop up. I can filter by the financial year, which is this up here. And in that financial year, you'll see reports of everything related to it. You can also link the financial year to the year's database, and then that will roll all of that information up into your yearly report view. Really cool stuff, that, I think. And then finally, at the bottom, we have an historic database view where you can look at the yearly balance sheets for everything, income, expenditure. That's all down the bottom. So as you build up your years, you'll have a full reference to it. Now, obviously, you have to be happy you're putting information in Notion. I personally think this is really useful for just tracking things, particularly for running a business accounting setup. So if you want to be clear on what you're being paid or paying to other people for stuff you might claim, I think that's what this is really useful for. I won't go into loads of detail in this video, but I'll show you the essentials of what it does. So let's say we wanted to put in a new income. We'd click on this new income button. You'll see that the date is already set, and that's rolling up the created date. But if I wanted to backdate it or forward date it, I can change it by setting the income date and it updates it. I can link it to a client that I might have invoiced, so that will be in the contacts dashboard, and I'm going to put the amount in. I can put in the income type. Let's say it's a contract fee. Now here, any of these blue ones are actually linking it back to the Creative OS option, but essentially anything purple is all good. And if you were using my Creative OS, I can link it to a creative project in there. It doesn't really change much if you're just using the standard LifeOS template, it just doesn't have that option. So there you go, there's my new income item, and then we'll just see it listed in here. It's updated the total, we now have more income. If I want to create a recurring item, I would just duplicate this, and away you go. Same with expenses really. The thing about expenses is it has the option to also link it to a type of bill, and I can set myself a budget. So if it's a variable item, and let's say it cost the right amount for this, you'll see that it changes if it's on budget or off budget. So again, if I put that over the budget, it says there's an overspend. So a really useful little trick. You can also filter by month here. So if I just filter for March, it will show me only stuff that's in March. So yeah, that's the income and expense tracker. We mentioned the CRM. In the LifeOS system, you just wouldn't have this creative contacts section. It simply divides into business contacts and personal contacts. You're probably getting the idea by now. It's pretty simple. You can add a new contact. You can set what type of contact it is. So what I put in a new personal contact, and it's Pepper. I can put when I was first got to know Pepper back in February 2022. And you can also see within that any projects linked to the contact and any clippings and notes, as you would with anything else. So everything is joining together. With business contacts, you can go a little bit further and filter them by leads, and anyone that has a project linked to them, which is live, it will show up in that. Simple. Now, for those of you like me who might manage freelance clients and contracts, create content or products, the Creative OS integration is a no-brainer to use. Here I have a full content and client project management system. So if you want to go further, adding that Creative OS to the bundle adds a standalone content and project manager to your system. Now, I'll save a more detailed tour and onboarding for this section of the content and client and project managing system for a future video, but let me show you my headline sections that I really think make this work. So there is a fully integrated income and expense tracker that builds on that finances dashboard for your business and content creation process, linked with a full CRM, which links into it itself, and then all of the content and projects you manage all join up. So those three databases work together to create essentially a project management system. We have a view of projects that are linked to the project database as a Creative OS project. So you would pick that if you wanted it to be that. This might be, for example, a YouTube channel has videos that go in the Creative OS. A product business has a series of digital products that I develop in the OS. Maybe my podcast. The other cool thing is that I have this live client view, which filters any clients with a live Creative OS project. The main system for managing things has live stuff, and you would use these templates, which fill things out in a really beautiful way. Any ideas, this is a view of that same database, which would be dropped in here. So you would just click that, create them wherever you are, and then you can turn them into live projects. And finally, we have a view of all published materials in various different views, depending on what parts of it you want to use. Now, the other cool thing about this is I have a tweets database. This means that you can create tweets within the database, and if you link it to queue, I can essentially publish tweets in the Creative OS, set the date that they want to be published, and they get sent to Twitter. And finally, let me just show you what a new project would look like. If we go in here, I want to do a new podcast episode. We're going to click on the template. It is pre-formatted, and you'll see if I set the status as in progress, it makes it live. Down here, I can add a client to it to say that we are linking people into that system. And my favorite thing about this is in tasks, I've created bespoke task lists for each setup. So I think that's really powerful. So if you want to learn more about this Creative OS system, keep your eye out for a future video tour on that, which I'll be making very soon. So that is my tour of the complete Second Brain system. I hope you like it. Can't wait to see what you guys do with it if you download it. And you can do that, download both versions now via bettercreating.com/LifeOS. And don't forget to use code LifeOSLaunch to get 50% off the list price. On the website, you'll find a full set of FAQs, secure download and payment options, and access to that exciting new community Discord server for us template users. I'm looking forward to new and existing users joining me on the server via that invite. It's going to be a great place for our community to share ideas, I think, and give feedback. I'll also use that Discord server to share additional template support videos and info on further updates in the future. Now, before we sign off, here's a bit of information for you existing users. Version 2 owners, you can move across for free if you want, but if you can, please pay what you can via the link that I'll be sending you and support my work. For those of you that own my simplified Notion template, I haven't forgotten you. That will be updated soon and become an even better analog-inspired, simplified personal planning system, so watch this space. Any 2021 version 1 users, please email me for a discount code to get the price of that really early template off this one if you want to jump to version 3. If you would like my new Notion and iOS icon and covers pack included in your download, there is a small fee for those so that I can ensure that my design partner who made them with me gets paid. I have moved payment platforms. I'm now processing payments and downloads through Lemon Squeezy. By going to the new download link, you'll receive what you need to access the new version and make sure that you're set up on that system for future versions. And any issues with actually downloading things, you can email notion@bettercreating.com and we will do our best to reply reasonably swiftly. Finally, moving across from the old template. Okay, due to the extensive improvements, new Notion features and additional databases added, this is a little bit more complicated this year. I've put together a support page to suggest the best approach, but my advice would be to follow my instructions to merge your knowledge, notes, and journal database content into the new template, and then manually start clean with all the other sections for things like tasks, goals, projects, the daily tracker, because they've had a serious revamp using these new features like subtasks and sub-items, so it will be much better to start clean in those areas. I really think it's worth it. Well, thank you all for coming on the tour. I hope you enjoyed the template if you do download it. Please make sure to subscribe here for future guide videos, and maybe I'll see you on one of these videos next. See you soon. Bye.